Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is James Duggan, and I'm here with resident tank expert and all-around good guy, Steve Butts. How's it going, Steve?
Good, James. How are you?
Good. So we're playing World of Tanks, which is by no means a new game, but a very fun game on the Xbox One. So it is new to the Xbox One. It came out on Tuesday, and previously you could play it on the Xbox 360. This is the first game, fun fact, to offer crossplay between the Xbox 360 and the Xbox One.
Yeah, technically kind of a big deal. Doesn't do much to change the content of the game, obviously, but just from a technical standpoint, pretty impressive that you're allowed to do that now. I wish that they had had that between the Xbox 360 and the PC version as well.
Yep. I had a lot of progression on the PC version. Speaking of progression, while we're in the main menu, let's just talk a little bit about it because it is a huge part of the game. So basically, you choose a nationality. There's quite a few. There are Russian, German, American, French, British, Chinese, and Japanese vehicles, and they are continuously adding new tanks as well as new nations. And you basically go down the tree in a couple of these different archetypes, but you can progress your national tree, you can progress your specific tank gear like we're seeing here, and then you can also progress your crew, which has been in PC since launch, however has not been in the Xbox version, and you told me it was actually quite new. And so that's something we can do, but we're going to check out a new feature here called the Proving Grounds, which is different from training missions. Training missions would be to kind of teach you the game. Proving Grounds would kind of be to let you stretch your legs a bit and see what you can do.
Yeah, this is sort of a PvE experience, which is new for World of Tanks and new for this version. So you don't immediately have to jump into the Crucible with like tons of other players immediately. And it's interesting because we looked through a few of these over the past week, and some of them kind of teach you some interesting skills. Some of them give you a chance to use some other tanks. Like I love the M3. I know a lot of people don't like the M3. The M3 is a great tank for this race mission. But in the race, you're also fighting other tanks. I mean, you can get shot and your treads get damaged. So it's interesting the way it teaches you sort of the core skills, the core competencies for the game.
Do you actually want to jump into that race? I thought that was one of the most entertaining things I've seen.
Well, so right now I'm in the Sherman. Let me back out.
Oh, okay.
I'll get into the
yeah, that would not, unless you shot your allies, that would not go over super well for you. But
which we tried. That doesn't
it doesn't work
so well. But yeah, the M3 Stuart is actually one of the faster tanks that I have. It's a fairly early tank, but like I said, one that I still like. So let's hop into Island Race here.
All right, here we are, starting your engines, preparing to race for teenage glory.
Yeah, through the magic of editing, suddenly flash forward in time.
No loading times. Is that a new feature? No, they're definitely still loading times. So yeah, so you're using a light tank, like you were saying, and light tanks. I was a person who was kind of very much interested in progressing and being one of the heaviest. And so there are heavy tanks, there are artillery tanks, there are tank destroyers, there are medium tanks, which kind of fill the role of faster tank towards the end of the game. But light tanks are some tanks, like you were saying, that don't get a lot of love. But this is a great place to use them.
Yeah, I mean, light tanks for me previously have just been something I jumped into to play a couple of quick matches with other newer players who haven't got to those tier 5, tier 6 tanks. But in this case, like, the light tank is exactly what you want. See, this big guy's getting in my way here. He did that to me last time we played this.
Yes, he is absolutely iron curtaining you. So
there's no friendly fire in this, unfortunately. Otherwise, I'd take this guy's treads out.
What's a really nice addition, since I kind of tapered off with this game, is the introduction of physics. You decided that nothing ventured, nothing gained, and took a little bit of a shortcut while you were playing this earlier. And in what would have been a completely insurmountable downward hill, you just flew over it. Yeah. And it was awesome.
Yeah, the physics are a lot cleaner since the launch of the 360 version. And the game looks a lot better, too. I mean, it really does.
It's running well as well. I think this is probably 30 frames per second, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I didn't mind the graphics on the 360 version. It didn't look as nice as some of the other games that we were playing at that time on the platform. But this is quite an upgrade, in my opinion, for the game. And you see those, if you're not familiar with the game, those little red diamonds are enemies, and while it generally makes sense to just sort of race through this as fast as possible, it is a race after all, those guys can shoot you and damage your tread. So there's this sort of risk-reward. Do I stop and take shots at the guys on the hill, or do I just power through and hope that they're targeting the other racers?
And as we learned before, there seem to be more of them towards the end of this, so you kind of do have to go a little bit slower, take your time, and hit some of those tanks.
Yeah, well, you're skirting the outskirts of the island right now. Eventually the race course takes you through the middle of the island, and you'll have enemies on all sides of you. Up here you can see there's a guy up on the top of this hill, and I can choose to stop here and take a shot at him, or I can continue on with the race. I think.
And your allies are kind of helping you out, which is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, they're making some of those same decisions, which is interesting. But now, look, I got other tanks.
So we should mention that this is not at all indicative of the gameplay of the core of the game.
Right.
The core of the game is about 15 versus 15, and it is basically a team deathmatch. However, there is a secondary victory condition where you can assault the enemy's base, and if nobody is left in that base, you can kind of capture it,
Right.
A la capture and hold style, and then your team will snag the victory, which is actually really cool because even if your team is getting destroyed and there's only 2 players left on your team, you can kind of still ninja the victory,
Yeah.
which I was always a huge fan of.
There you saw I just got hit, so I'm a little bit damaged here. Why don't we jump into another one of the game modes,
Sure,
James?
yeah, let's do it. Let's check out some of the core combat.
All right, so now we switched over to my M4. This is my favorite tank. I love this thing. There are other tanks that are probably better for me, just in terms of stats and everything, but I don't know. I like this.
It's
I like
interesting.
this tank a lot.
That was an experience I had as well, and my favorite was the Tiger 2.
Mhm.
It was absolutely my hands-down favorite tank, even though it was not like a tier 10 tank.
Right.
So it was not the Moss. But that being said, we were talking about this a little bit earlier. The cool thing about this game is there are 10 tiers of tank. Actually, maybe I think there's still 10. But it's not just about getting to tier 10, because tier 10 is a very heavy tank. It's a slow tank usually. It's about getting to a tank that is good in the context of that tier.
Right.
And something that you enjoy playing. So if you're not a run and gun guy and you're not kind of a heavy everybody shoot me guy, you also have the option to be a stealth, like a stealth tank destroyer.
Yeah.
And then as well as a backlines artillery player, which is a very different gameplay style than something like the Sherman here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned it perfectly, right? You have to find a tank that matches your style.
Yeah, one at your 9 o'clock.
And some people are some
3
people
o'clock.
really like artillery. Some people really like that sort of top-down view, sitting in the back, attacking folks from afar. I don't enjoy that as much myself, but sometimes, it's a nice change of pace.
Yeah, my favorite time playing artillery was when your team would get totally destroyed and you'd be back at your base
Right.
and there would be an onslaught of tanks coming towards you. But if you went out of artillery mode, some of the artillery you could actually aim low enough and like one-shot some of the guys coming at you. But artillery is very much a glass cannon archetype, so you cannot take very much damage.
It's definitely an acquired taste, but I got to agree with you. Those direct fire moments when you can actually use your artillery when you're shooting somebody right under your reticle is the most awesome thing.
So at least when I was playing the game, it did an interesting thing where, and this issue ended up being resolved over time, but it was kind of caught in a strange design space between historical accuracy and then statistical balance.
Right.
So to me, historical accuracy is an absolute. Basically, if the Tiger was able to move at 45 miles per hour, but players think that is too fast, you cannot nerf it while maintaining historically accurate. But they opted to go the route of balancing based upon player feedback as well as, I'm sure, some internal testing. And I think that was better for the game, absolutely. Since it is very much a social experience, it's about the players, and at the end of the day, I think it is a video game.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, they use sort of the historical performance of these tanks as a kind of jumping off point or a sort of inspiration, which allows them to balance things a little bit better. The King Tigers and sort of the big tanks at the end of the chain, it'd be very difficult for a smaller tank to damage them. And I think they sort of rubber band things a little bit.
Right.
Like things are a little bit closer than they would be historically.
Oh, so it's worth talking about the armor thickness as well as round penetration. So basically the way it works in this game is not just the thickness of your armor matters, as I learned playing the German tree.
Right.
It's not just about having 12-inch thick armor, but it's also about the sloping. So positioning your tank based upon the sloping of your armor is very important. Obviously, the front of the tank is generally the most armored, the sides are kind of not so armored, and the back is a huge weak spot on almost any tank.
Yeah, facing is super important, and the angle of the impact also matters.
Correct.
So, an attack dead on, that full impact is going to be transferred through your armor. But if it's sort of glancing off of your armor, that's a better deal for you. Which means it's not just about which direction your turret's pointing, but which facing you're offering to your opponent as well.
Yeah, and the UI lends itself to that very well. Even if you're zoomed in like this, you can still see the direction of your turret and the direction of your tank in the lower left-hand corner of the HUD, which is a really nice feature.
All right. How are we doing here?
Looks like you guys only have 2 tanks left and 4 minutes, so you're doing pretty well. I have to say, there were as is the case with a lot of matchmaking, there are times where your team will absolutely crush or get absolutely crushed. But in this game, there were a lot of times where one person who's really good could kind of carry the team. And I always enjoy that because I enjoy kind of the comeback story and coming from behind to win. And those are the most epic moments for me in this game. And there are also clan wars in this game, which is kind of the end game, which neither of us have any experience with. However, the idea there is you get with a group of your friends, you kind of control a territory on almost this like Risk-style map, and then duke that out via instance combat like this.
Yeah, I will say if there's one thing I don't like about this game that I don't imagine has been improved here, I can't imagine it would have been, is it does get a little grindy. There are definitely some dead spots in the tiers. We should mention, you talked about tank destroyers and the 3 classes of tanks, and then also artillery. There are separate lines for each one of those, and you're unlocking progression in each one per nationality as well. So you really have to commit, and you could get in a situation where you've unlocked that tier 4 tank or that tier 4 TD, and you don't like it. And you have to grind
Go
through
back
it to
to
get
tier
to the
1
fifth one.
for another one. Sometimes there are like horizontal progression paths, so you can go from a tank destroyer back to a medium tank, but those are not always the case.
That guy just got us. I'm not into this. I can't have come this far.
It's just your treads. Your tank is holding up fine.
And here's one of the concessions to sort
Look
of
at
the
those rounds bouncing off of you.
The arcade style of the game is, you can get hit and your treads can be immobilized, and suddenly they get fixed, right? I mean,
without anybody getting out of your tank. That's a stat of the crew, and that's the case with all of your different critical systems. But you're right, it is a little bit arcadey there.
Yeah, but I like that. I mean, it means you can still be in the fight, but you do still have that sort of hardcore element of targeting subsystems, and I'm going to aim for this guy's tread because I want him to be immobilized, or I want to aim for this guy's tracks.
Make sure you take out his warp drive.
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh, he is so close to dead.
I've made a poor choice here, James.
I made a poor choice. I'm pretty sure you're going to get out of this one alive.
We'll see.
You'll be the hero of the day.
Oh, no, it bounced!
See, this is what's so great about this game. You're kind of aiming at a little bit of a slope there. You might want to
That clacking is that you hear me. That clacking was me desperately trying to fire as my gunner was reloading.
And that's what's awesome about this game. Is it's based upon statistical elements of your tank. That plays a huge part, but it's also there isn't an amount of player skill that isn't immediately apparent to someone who's looking at the game for the first time, because they just see, oh, you shoot, you wait for them to shoot, you shoot, but there's there's angling, there's hiding behind cover, there's flanking, there's like an overall, to quote George Bush from Saturday Night Live, strategery. And then there's also the different styles of play. So and we haven't mentioned it yet, but this game is free to play.
Yeah, it's free to play. I mean, there is a real money economy in this game, so you can pay to get new stuff and to unlock stuff a little bit faster. But you can grind your way through it. I mean, you can play this game and enjoy it without spending a dime on it.
Which was not the case for me. I spent way too much on this game.
Yeah, but I like it. I mean, the new things in the Xbox One are obviously the improved graphics. It's got the Proving Grounds content, which is fun. I don't think I'll be spending a lot of time there. I think I'm still going to get into the PvP matches. And then it has, at launch, some of the things that were missing from the 360 at launch, like crew and stuff like that, which is pretty essential to the experience if you really get into it.
So if you guys got this game on an Xbox 360, make sure to pick it up on Xbox One, because it's obviously free, and all your progression will carry over, and you can still play with your friends even though they're on Xbox 360. If you did not have a 360 and just got an Xbox One, this is an awesome title to check out at the price of nothing, at least at the start. But that's all I have to say about that.
Awesome.
So for all things World of Tanks, keep it right here on IGN.